Hello and welcome back to another episode of Real with Ryan. In today's video, we're going to unbox, assemble, test, and review the Pod 3 cover by Sleep, and specifically compare it to the Ooler sleep system by Chillisleep that I've been using for about 2.5 years now. But without further ado, let's hop into the video. Let's start off with the unboxing of the Sleep Pod 3 cover. Here we go. In that first box, we have an instruction manual, the tower unit, which off first impressions does look really nice. It almost looks kind of like a PC. So here's everything included in the package. We have the mattress pad. We did get a king size. The tubing connected to the mattress pad, the control unit, a power cord, a plug, and an instruction manual. So I do appreciate simplicity and the fact that there's not a ton of component pieces here. Now that we have the pod unboxed, it's time to set it up and get it placed on the bed. The first thing we'll be doing is removing the pad from the Ooler sleep system. One thing to keep in mind is that the setup does use an app. It's got an instruction manual, but it links you directly to the app, so the instructions will be there. Okay, so here is the Sleep pod on the bed now. Fit really well. It's definitely beefier than the Ooler pad, but this fits like a fitted sheet, but a little bit thicker. We'll see if that affects the comfort levels at all. We have the mattress set up and some of my personal sleep settings. It also makes it easy to invite a partner to do the same. They'll need to set up the app and do things on their own if you're sharing your bed with anyone. But now it is time to prime the machine. So we're gonna run some distilled water and peroxide through it. It should take a few hours. It says up to 3. So one thing to keep in mind is that there is a little bit of a setup time before you can use your mattress. All right, now we're gonna place this back in here. Easy peasy. Okay, so it probably took about 2 hours for it to run its cleaning cycle, and it is ready to go. We're cleaning our sheets right now, but we're gonna put the sheets on the bed here in a little bit and then have ourselves, hopefully, a wonderful first night's sleep. It has been over a week sleeping on the Sleep pod cover, and I have been keeping thorough notes to make sure that I'm bringing you all of my thoughts and review about the pod so far. So let me jump into some of the key points and features about the Sleep pod cover and talk through various different facets of the pod and why you might or might not want to make that purchase. The first thing I wanted to talk about is the temperature, and this really is where the rubber meets the road. The Sleep pod can in fact get very, very cold and very, very hot. This is going to be one of the most important things about a water-cooled mattress topper is you want to make sure, especially if you're a hot sleeper like me, that it can get cold enough to cool you down even on hot summer nights. I have had absolutely no issues with the Sleep pod getting cold enough, and I've even been impressed with how cold it gets even on just a slight setting. Whenever I was sleeping on the Ooler sleep system pad, I had the temperature turned down almost all the way and would find that even sometimes I would get a little bit warm at night. With the Sleep pod, the temperature adjustments go from -10 being the coldest to 0 being neutral to +10 being the hottest. And I've found myself sticking to the -2 and -3 range, meaning that I can go much, much colder, which is really excellent since I am a hot sleeper and want to have room for a very cold mattress. One of the things I will say about the temperature, compared to the Ooler sleep system would get very cold before you got into bed. It was very cold on the touch. I found that the Sleep doesn't get as cold whenever you're getting into bed, but that 10 to 15 minutes after you've been in bed, the fans kick on and it starts to get really cold really quickly. So this is one thing that I've found is a little bit annoying. I would like if it was cold to the touch when I got into bed and it kind of stayed that cold throughout. But it does kick on and get really cold after a few minutes of laying in the bed. The other thing that I'll mention that may or may not be a complaint depending on how you look at it is the temperature scale. Like I mentioned, the scale on Sleep goes from -10 to 0 to +10 based off of the temperatures, and it doesn't give you that temperature in degrees range. With the Ooler system, it would tell you exactly you're at 58 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever it is, but you have a good understanding of what those temperatures feel like. There is a little bit of a learning curve to figure out what does a -2 feel like on the 8-sleep, for example. Moving on to the next category is the setup. Luckily for the 8-sleep, even though it is a very smart system, the setup was super easy, and the app walked you through all the different steps to get set up correctly. One thing to call out is you do have to have hydrogen peroxide and distilled water in order to get the pod set up the first time. There also is about a 3-ish hour priming period that you have to go through for both sides of the mattress. Whenever I set up the pod for me and my partner, I primed my side of the mattress and forgot to do hers. And so on the first night, we ended up having to have her prime her side, and the machine was extra loud and didn't get quite as cold because it had to go through that priming cycle. Just be aware that on the first day of setup, you do need to have some time before bed in order to get the pod set up and then prime the pod to be ready for your first night of sleep. The other thing I'll mention about setup is that it does take time to find the right temperature for your sleep and your sleep styles. This isn't something that just out of the box and on the first night, you're going to have the perfect sleep temperatures. There's a lot of temperatures to play around with, and it takes some trial and error in order to find the sleep settings that are going to be perfect for you. If you're expecting the very first night of your sleep to be completely perfect and dialed in your exact temperature, just understand it's going to take a handful of days and some playing around with the temperature settings to find the temperature that suits your sleep the best. The next category I wanted to call out is comfort. Luckily, the 8-sleep pod cover is very comfortable. It's even more comfortable than the Ooler sleep pad, which I found comfortable as well. The mattress topper is relatively thick, however, which means that it fits well on the mattress and you can't feel any of the tubing that goes through the mattress topper. But if you are someone that has a memory foam or a pillow top mattress topper, I can't imagine that would make those feel a little less plush. So while it is a comfortable topper, if you are someone that likes your bed as fluffy and cushy as possible, there might be a little bit of firmness added with the 8-sleep cover. Here's a big category I wanted to talk about next, and that is the noise. I do have mixed feelings about the noise level with the 8-sleep pod cover. The 8-sleep is very quiet and much more quiet than even the Ooler sleep systems we were using before, but there is one caveat in that the noise does sound kind of like computer fans running, and it does change in noise level based off of how hard the unit is working. For example, most of the time you can't hear the unit at all. It is basically silent. But if I am feeling really hot and trying to cool the bed down to -2 or -3 on the temperature settings, the fans will kick on and rev up, and then it gets louder from that almost silent baseline. That change in volume is much more noticeable than if it was just loud and steady in the first place. So even though in general it is a more quiet unit than say the Ooler sleep system, because the Ooler was a steady noise, I found it easier to drown out. With that being said, after about 3 or 4 days of hearing those fans and the change in noise, it has become part of the background and is something I think most people would get used to and learn to drown out and sleep with.
So here is the 8-sleep and how loud it is operating. So most of the time it is sub-perceivable. And here's the 8-sleep when it's making a little bit more noise, trying to cool me down in the middle of the night.
Okay, moving on to the next portion of this review, I want to take a good amount of time and talk about the interface for 8-sleep. The interface is going to be one of the key elements in the 8-sleep pod, and it's going to be one of the things that differentiates 8-sleep from some of the other competitors on the market.
Overall, I find the interface for the 8 Sleep pod cover to be fantastic, and compared to the Ooler, it is a much nicer, cleaner, and easier to use interface. Now, there definitely is a lot of different things going on with the interface, and there's a little bit of a learning curve to get used to the interface, but I'm loving all the options, and I think that the design of the interface is really well thought out. Starting off with the temperature controls, it is really easy to turn the pod on and off and adjust the temperature controls as needed with the dial. It also is easy to adjust the temperature across the night, so you can start with your bedtime settings, adjust your deep sleep settings, your REM settings, and then wake up. The app coaches you through some of the best practices for adjusting temperature across all of these different sleep cycles, and it's really easy to play with those settings and adjust the temperatures up and down for each sleep cycle as needed. One point of feedback that I'll mention, I've already mentioned this already, is that the -10 to +10 temperature control is going to take a little bit of getting used to, and I feel like there could at least be a suggestion for what degree Fahrenheit or Celsius that these numbers equate to, because what does -2 or -4 or 0 really mean? I do love how with specifically the bedtime and wake up settings, you can schedule different settings based off of the night or the day in which you're waking up or going to bed. It makes it really easy to, let's say, have a weekday schedule and then a weekend schedule. The wake up settings are also very intuitive, and there's a lot of different things that you can play with. For example, you can automate it to have specific schedules for different days. I like to wake up really hot and find that it gets my butt out of bed, and I've also found the vibration to be a really great tool for waking up, and I'm preferring that much more over my traditional alarm. One thing to note is that the vibration is very strong, and me and my partner have found that it can wake each other up if one of us is getting out of bed before the other. But overall, the sleep temperature settings and the ways to adjust using the interface is excellent. While it does take a little time to get used to, the settings, the functionality, and everything is very intuitive, and so I think it's a really well done app and design. Now, let me take a moment to talk about the data. Overall, I've been really impressed with the data that the 8 Sleep Pod is collecting, especially if you're someone that's going from collecting almost no sleep data to the 8 Sleep. This is going to be leaps and bounds better than what you've experienced before. Now, I am someone that uses fitness trackers, Whoop bands, etc. So I've had a decent understanding and ability to collect data before, but the fact that this is integrated into my mattress and is just going to collect no matter what, I don't have to wear anything, is excellent. Now, with the convenience of this data tracking, there is some drawbacks in that I think that partners as well as pets, for example, we have a Chihuahua that sleeps in our bed, is going to affect some of the data that's being collected. But in general, the data collected is going to be much better than if you were to not collect any data at all. I find that the sleep fitness score is going to be a really good representation of the overall idea of did you sleep well or not, and is going to be a good metric to look at for most people. But I do love how the data then breaks that sleep fitness score into three main categories. The quality of your sleep as measured by the REM and deep sleep cycles, as well as how long it took you to go to bed. Your routine as measured by your bedtime and wake up time and how normalized those are compared to your averages. And then of course, time slept. So how much time were you able to actually sleep? These are a good just baseline level metrics to help you understand at a high level, are you sleeping well? Are you not sleeping well? And being able to track these across time can help you understand and identify how you can sleep better. I will say when it comes to the REM and the deep sleep cycles, it does give you this nice chart and tells you how much time you spent in each of these zones, but I would take some of this data with a grain of salt because if you have a partner or a pet, it can affect how this data is reading out. And even though I do tend to trust this data, I'm not sure if I do trust it quite as much as something that would be worn on your finger or a wrist. The other pieces of data I really like here are going to be some of the health metric data. The heart rate, I think, is decent. The breath rate, I think, is decent. And those are things that you might monitor and will help indicate if you might be getting sick or having particularly bad sleep. But I think the real metric to watch is going to be the HRV, or heart rate variability. I've found that across all the sleep trackers that I've used, that heart rate variability is typically the single best measure of how good I'm feeling the next day, how rested, recovered, and ready to perform I am. Having heart rate variability included in my mattress is an excellent measure, and the ability to see what my HRV is across time, across the week, across months is a great indication of, is my health getting better, or is my health getting worse or staying the same? I'm a huge fan that this data is charted out through the app, and you can see how your data adjust over time with the charts and metrics that makes it really easy to digest. And last but not least, you can export your data. So you do have the ability to download your data if you want to pull this into, let's say, an Excel file and do some separate analysis of your own. Now, I wanted to move over and talk about some of the smart features of the 8 Sleep Pod cover, which are plenty and definitely a good driving point for this product. The first thing I'll mention is that the 8 Sleep Pod cover does feel like a smart device. If I compare this to the Ooler definitely did make my bed feel colder, and there were some settings, but it does not compare to how many smart features that the 8 Sleep has. Through its autopilot mode, where it helps coach you to find the right temperatures for your sleep, and it will monitor and make adjustments on the fly while you're sleeping, which I think is a really great idea, and I love the fact that it's doing that, even though it is a little bit hard to understand how it's affecting my sleep because it's happening while I'm sleeping. I love how the temperature dial is adjusted based off of when you get in bed and fall asleep. And then the next sleep stages are actually changing, not based off of the time of night, but of you getting in bed and falling asleep. Meaning that if my preference is going to sleep at a -2 temperature, it's going to stay at that temperature until I get in bed, no matter how late it is I go to bed. And then from there, as I'm sleeping, it will go through my temperature cycles. This is different than the Ooler device, where you basically pick times of night for these temperature adjustments to be made automatically. So if I happen to go to bed late one night, I might be getting into my bed at a temperature that I wasn't comfortable with because it would be while I was normally sleeping. I have also been a huge fan of the wake up settings. There's a lot of different adjustments, whether you want to wake up warm, you want to wake up cold. You can choose how warm or cold. And then the vibration mode, I think, is also a really pleasant addition and feature that I've been enjoying waking up to every day. And then it also gives some smart insights. So based off of your metrics, your app will tell you a key insight from your sleep, which is really, really powerful, especially for people who are just getting into sleep tracking and data and might not know what all the different metrics mean up front.
With all of that being said, let's get to a really important part of the 8 Sleep Pod, and that is the price. And the real honest answer for the price of this 8 Sleep is that it is not cheap. Depending on the size of your bed, depending on a few of the different features you select, you're likely going to spend anywhere between $2,000 and $2,500 on this 8 Sleep Pod cover. Now, I have seen a lot of different deals and discounts that are available from season to season, so you might just stay on the lookout for different types of deals that you can snag from season to season. By the way, if you are looking for $200 off your pod cover, I'll have a link to that discount in the description below. You get $200 off of your purchase, and I would get a little bit of a kickback to help incentivize me to make more content like this. Now, here is one big point of feedback, and something that has kind of annoyed me with the 8 Sleep is that on top of around a $2,000 purchase price, there is a subscription that's about $180 per year. Every other sleep tracker on the market does have a subscription for it,
But if you're paying $2,000 to $2,500 for a product, I just think that that subscription should be included. You do pay up front for the first year, so it's included in the price. But I do know a year from now, whenever I have to pay $180 again, I know that's gonna feel like a slap in the face, and frankly, it's probably gonna piss me off when I have to pay that fee. So that is one big thing that I do have qualms with the 8 Sleep. The Ooler and other units I've used do not have a subscription fee. In conclusion, I think the 8 Sleep is a wonderful product, if not the very best product on the market for tracking your data and keeping you cool while you sleep. Now, for having that top spot, in my opinion, it also does come with the highest price. I think if you are the type of person to spare no expense, who sleeps hot and you need a way to stay cold, you appreciate and want a system that's going to track your health metrics, and you like all the different bells and whistles and fancy features that come with a premium device like this, you are really going to like the 8 Sleep product. Now, if you are someone who's on a budget or just needs a more cost-effective way to stay cold at night, I do think there's going to be a lot of different options on the market that are going to help you stay cold while you sleep, but are going to save you anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. The Ooler and the systems by the Chillisleep company are going to be an alternative that are going to be a bit more cost effective, and depending on the model you choose, will have more and less smart features, but will be a lot more affordable. And finally, I haven't tested these out, but there are some third-party products on Amazon that are only going to cost a couple $100s. So if you are on a budget, you might consider some of those as options or alternatives. With that being said, I am a firm believer that sleep is one of the most important things in your life that you can invest in and spend money on. Optimizing your sleep, improving your sleep is one of the ways that you can improve the rest of your life and the performance across all these different aspects and facets of your life. So with that being said, I am very happy in my decision to purchase the 8 Sleep unit. From its ability to stay cold, to its smart features and its data tracking, I love all of the features and think it's a very well designed and thought out product. So like I mentioned, if you are in the market for the 8 Sleep, feel free to check out the link in the description below for $200 off. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in a comment below and I'll be really quick to answer those for you. And if you found this video helpful or useful, feel free to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel, as it helps incentivize me to make more content like this. But thank you so much for watching this video. And as always, thank you for keeping it real with Ryan.